Single dad millionaire discovers nanny sleeping on the floor. What he did next was transformative. Jake Lawson rubbed the back of his neck, feeling the tension knot deeper into his muscles as he stepped through the door of his sleek suburban Austin home. The relentless demands of his growing tech startup weighed heavily on him. 6 back-to-back meetings, a slew of emails begging for his attention, and a looming product launch had drained him more than he wished to admit. Pushing through that pain, he called for Ella and Max with a forced cheerfulness that felt foreign in his throat. No sooner had he taken off his shoes than his eyes landed on a heartbreaking scene. Olivia, the young nanny he had hired only months ago, was curled up asleep on the living room floor, surrounded by colorful toys and the remnants of their playtime. Her delicate features, softened by slumber, stirred an unfamiliar mix of guilt and despair in him. The sight tugged at the edges of his conscience. It struck him like a wave crashing against a shore. Was this truly the life he was providing for his children? Was his success worth this burden? On one end, he was shaping the future through innovation, while on the other, he was absent, their cherubic faces longing for the warmth of their father. A pang of disappointment coursed through him like ice water. He stared at Olivia, practically living out his own moral dilemma. How could she be so selfless, yet unknowingly bear the brunt of his negligence? His privilege felt like a shackle as he grappled with the reality of his choices. He couldn't ignore the whispers inside his mind. How could he educate his kids about work ethic and empathy when he himself had never had to fight for opportunity? The juxtaposition of their lives, a self-made millionaire in his tailored suit versus a bright-eyed graduate working long hours to care for his little ones, felt stark and excruciating. Unease washed over him like a chilling breeze as he contemplated the implications of both his privilege and his responsibilities. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Jake fought the rising anger bubbling within him, one directed at the system that perpetuated such inequalities and at himself for being a part of it. He wanted to fix this, to ensure that children and caregivers didn't have to deal with such exhaustion and neglect. What if he dared to change the status quo? Resolved to take action, he promised himself he would talk to Olivia the next day, open the door to the possibility that could redefine their lives. But what if he failed? What if he stepped too far outside his comfort zone? Each question slithered deeper, planting seeds of doubt that thrived in the fertile soil of his anxiety. As the night wore on, Jake lay awake, the shadows of his thoughts keeping him company. He ached to be a better father, a better leader, and perhaps even a better human being. Just as he felt the flickering flame of hope ignite, a terrifying thought gripped him. What if Olivia's efforts fulfilled the gap he couldn't seem to bridge? What if, in helping her, he faced a truth about himself that he didn't want to confront? Staring at the ceiling, Jake suddenly realized he found himself at a crossroads. What would happen when the time came to act? He could feel the weight of impending choices pressing down harder than ever. The world outside that window felt distant, and for the first time in a long time, he felt the cold sting of desperation. Would he continue to hold on to the life he built, or would the experience of working alongside Olivia compel him to tear it all apart in search of something deeper? The next morning dawned, filled with a quiet promise that felt like an echo of hope. Yet, as Jake brewed coffee in his sleek kitchen, the weight of the impending conversation with Olivia loomed large in his mind. He moved through the motions, the steam curling into the air, the rhythmic pouring of dark liquid, but his thoughts were a chaotic whirlwind. What would he say? How could he articulate the turmoil churning within him without sounding patronizing? The stakes felt unprecedented.
It was a chance to redefine not only their working relationship, but possibly his entire understanding of himself. When Olivia arrived, her energy brightened the room, infectious in its simplicity. Jake inwardly admired her ability to embody joy despite the exhausting nature of her work. But he noticed something else, a flicker of vulnerability when she realized he was unusually quiet. The sunlight filtering through the window illuminated the fluttering apprehension across her features, and he could see her mentally wrestling with whatever conclusion she might be jumping to. "Good morning, Jake," she chirped, trying to mask the hesitation that had slipped through. "Morning, Olivia," he replied, forcing a smile that felt heavy. "Can we sit down for a moment? I want to talk to you about something important." Her brow furrowed, and Jake felt a pang of guilt for the moment he was disrupting. He gestured toward the dining table, and they sat, the silence stretching out like an unspooled thread. The deep, soothing aroma of coffee drifted between them, yet it could not mask the tension burgeoning in the space. "You've been working incredibly hard," Jake began, careful to choose his words as if he were crafting a delicate structure. "I appreciate everything you do for Ella and Max, but I need to admit that I've realized my—" He hesitated, the term failure weighing on his tongue. "My absence can be overwhelming. I'm struggling to balance my work and family life." Olivia's eyes widened, and for a fleeting moment, Jake saw a flicker of surprise and sympathy intermingled. It was an acknowledgement, a breathing moment shared amidst the poised uncertainties they both felt. "I love the kids. I wouldn't trade this job for anything. But I also want to be effective at it," she said, a layer of honesty wrapped in determination. "I worry sometimes about what kind of impact my dedication has on your ability to bond with them." Jake felt as though she had peeled back a layer of his facade. He took a breath to gather himself, realizing that their exchange could forge the foundation for something transformative. This wasn't merely about him being a better father. It was about acknowledging her worth, her efforts, and the sacrifices that began gnawing at his core. "I want to create a better balance, not just for me, but for you as well. You deserve to have your own time, your own life, away from being a caretaker." The words settled between them, a reckless honesty that burned and illuminated the shadows of his doubts. Olivia appeared taken aback, her vulnerability now shared. "You mean investing in me?" Let me help you with projects outside of here," he interrupted, emboldened by a growing conviction. "Maybe you could pursue something you've always wanted to do." The silence that followed echoed through the room, urging him to listen closely. She blinked, seemingly considering the possibility, her own aspirations weaving into the very fabric of the world he was seeking to change. Yet, beneath the surface, fear clawed at him. Did he have the resolve to support her genuine ambitions? Jake's thoughts spiraled. The weight of his wealth felt irrelevant in this instant. What truly mattered was dismantling the barriers he inadvertently erected. As Olivia spoke tentatively about her passion for design and how it intertwined with her dreams, Jake felt a flicker of determination ignite within himself. If he could facilitate her growth in the same way he hoped to grow as a person and father, perhaps they both could find freedom from their current realities. But what if she had dreams that conflicted with his own visions? What if the empowerment he hoped to offer her led to an unforeseen complication in their working arrangement? The thought knotted his stomach as Jake grappled with the risks of venturing into uncharted territory. What if, in helping her discover her potential, he unearthed truths about himself that would irrevocably change their lives together? Just then, a knock at the door broke through his thoughts, pulling him from the moment. A sense of impending change lingered heavily in the air. The confrontation was not just external, but an unfolding within him as well, revealing layers of their intertwined destinies. Would this newfound shared journey deliver the growth he sought, or would it expose a darkness he wasn't ready to confront? Jake's heart raced as he stood up, stealing a glance at Olivia, who was now fidgeting with her hands.
The knock had disrupted their fragile moment of honesty, shifting the atmosphere from the promise of discovery to the hesitation of potential complications. He approached the door, a mix of dread and curiosity coiling in his stomach. Opening the door revealed a disheveled delivery man, balancing a large box on his shoulder. It wasn't exactly the unexpected disruption he had braced for. After taking the package, he muttered a quick thanks and closed the door. But the brief interruption had shifted his focus. The world outside felt distant, as if reality was reminding him of the ticking clock. Every second weighed more heavily now. Returning to the dining table, he caught Olivia's gaze. She had regained her composure, but he could see remnants of the internal conflict swirling within her. He resettled and took a sip of coffee to clear his throat, suddenly jolted by the weight of the conversation lingering heavily in the air. "Sorry about that," he mumbled, but her eyes burned with a glimmer of something. Anticipation? Unsupported ambition? He couldn't be sure. "You were saying something about design." Olivia hesitated. "Right. It's just something I think about from time to time. I love creating spaces that feel alive. It's fulfilling in a way that I don't often get from taking care of kids, interesting as they are." Her honesty sparked a realization within him. Olivia didn't merely want acknowledgement of her efforts, but more importantly, a validation of her identity beyond being a caretaker. Could he truly help her carve out that space without setting her on a course contradicting the fragile balance he now sought? "Then maybe we can brainstorm," Jake said, an impulsive optimism flooding his voice. "Help you develop your ideas into something tangible. How do you want to approach it?" Just as the words left his mouth, he felt a subtle shift in the room. Olivia's face brightened into an expression he hadn't seen before, a mix of excitement and fear, as though she had crossed an unspoken threshold into possibility. "I've always dreamed of starting a small interior design business," she admitted cautiously. "I just never thought it was something I could actually explore." The sincerity of her statement struck a chord deep within him. Jake realized how much he could learn from this moment. Her willingness to explore new territory echoed his own need for growth, both personally and professionally. "Then let's that go," he encouraged. "Start mapping out what you need. Maybe gather a list of potential clients or projects, and we can find a way to legitimize your ambition." As she began to speak, the fervency of her passion was palpable, drawing him into a world rife with color, creativity, and possibility. He took notes, her ideas sparking something within him he had long relegated to his dreams rather than his reality. They worked together, intertwined thoughts and ambitions, the conversation flowing effortlessly and building a foundation for something bigger than either had expected. But as new concepts took shape, Jake's mind returned to the looming uncertainty. What if Emma pushed back against Olivia's new endeavors? Would enhancing her ambition foster resentment or a strained relationship? Or was he instead laying the groundwork for an alliance that could benefit them both? The ambiance shifted again, the tension rising. Jake eagerly wanted to shove aside the what-ifs, but found himself mired in a web of possibility and doubt. What lay ahead of them felt like standing at the edge of a precipice. Leaping forward could lead to the exhilarating heights of shared success or the devastating depth of their respective fears. As the evening darkened and creativity flowed between them like an electric current, Jake's thoughts whirled once more. He was not merely investing in Olivia's potential, he was tangling his own desires with hers. He was not yet comfortable in the vulnerability this brought, wondering if his involvement would harness the storm of change, revealing a different type of man he wasn't entirely prepared to face. With the future sprawling before him, he began to wonder, could this potential new path expose the truth about who he really was, perhaps dismantling the walls he'd erected? Or might it push him into a shadow he could not escape? It was a turning point he felt fundamentally within him, one that screamed for further exploration, just as the door opened wide for what could await. Then the doorbell chimed sharply again, this time with a sense of purpose that sliced through their moment. What or who waited beyond it might decide the trajectory of both their lives. Jake felt the electric tension in the air, his heart racing anew as Olivia and he exchanged a glance filled with unspoken words. With a sense of trepidation intertwining with curiosity, he moved toward the door, dismissing the erratic beat of his pulse. What could possibly add to the complexity of their unfolding dynamic at this moment? The door swung open to reveal a young woman in a smart blazer, her expression a mix of determination and anxiety. "Mr. Callahan, I'm Amy from the consulting firm. I've been assigned to evaluate your recent projects and give recommendations." The weight of her intrusion momentarily locked Jake in place. Amy's presence was an unexpected jolt back to reality, reminding him of his professional responsibilities amid the emotional exploration with Olivia. He hadn't initiated this discussion with Olivia just to be pulled back into corporate mundanity. "Right, I forgot about that. Please come in," he managed, stepping aside. The words felt hollow, drained of the emotional significance they had carried a moment earlier. As Amy entered, Jake's mind raced, ricocheting off the walls of his growing anxiety. How had he let the complexity of his work and personal aspirations intertwine so tightly? He wanted to foster Olivia's ambition, push her boundaries, but here stood a reminder of a life where he had meticulously crafted control, where chaos was an unwelcome guest. Less than a minute into Amy's presentation, Jake found his focus slipping away. Her professional jargon washed over him like white noise, a dull hum contrasting the vibrant possibilities Olivia had sparked in him. "Merging both branding initiatives can yield cross-promotional benefits," Amy continued, but her words were drowned out by thoughts of his brewing, uncharted partnership with Olivia. How had he neglected the budding avenues of creativity and ambition in favor of this sterile corporate audit? A sense of frustration simmered within him. This was the life he thought he wanted, yet it felt suffocating now, stifling everything that was beginning to blossom. Jake strategically interjected her presentation. "How do you plan to execute those initiatives in a way that feels fresh? I don't want us to take the same direction as everyone else." A challenging tone slipped into his voice, but he realized how deeply he craved innovation, not just for his firm, but within himself, a yearning ignited by Olivia's passion. "Mr. Callahan, that's the standard approach. It works," she replied, confusion flickering in her eyes, surprised by his interrogation. "Standard usually leads to stagnation. If we're not pushing boundaries, we're not growing," he countered, surprising even himself with the shift in conviction. A pulse of satisfaction surged through him. He was beginning to discover his voice, equally bold in business as he had been in this burgeoning personal discussion with Olivia. With every piece of information, every question from him, he felt threads of his identity weaving tighter together. This wasn't just about evaluating existing projects, it was about framing visions. The same lessons he was learning with Olivia applied here. Without even recognizing it fully, he was pushing himself into new territories, embracing turbulence rather than retreating from it. As Amy continued, Jake caught a glimpse of Olivia from the corner of his eye. She sat quietly, an attentive observer, and the connection intensified. He needed to integrate her ambitions into this broader vision if he really wanted to see meaningful transformation, not just in her life, but in his as well. Just as he reached a pivotal realization, the tension in the room thickened. Jake could feel the stakes shifting, as if the universe conspired to push him further into embracing vulnerability. He had taken the first few steps toward an unexpected path, but there was a lurking tension, as if forces were confluence. "How do we make this not just another consultancy exercise, but a real catalyst for change?" he pressed Amy, desperation creeping into his voice despite itself. He sensed the invisible threads of opportunity stretching taut, threatening to snap. The door had been flung wide open to a cascade of discovery, yet doubts still lingered like shadows in the corners of the room. As Jake awaited Amy's response, another door loomed ahead, echoing the urgency of their earlier conversation. How far could he push the boundaries of his personal and professional development simultaneously without breaking?
With each heartbeat, he understood that what lay ahead was far more than a simple business proposal. It was a delicate dance of risk and revelation, a dance that would inevitably lead him closer to a consuming truth about himself and those around him. Jake's resolve tightened as he awaited Amy's response. With each tick of the clock, uncertainty began to take root in his mind, unsettling what he had just begun to solidify. He felt the shift in the atmosphere, the way the unsaid words lingered in the air like a fog, weighing him down. "I appreciate your commitment to innovation," Amy finally replied, adjusting her stance, a hint of determination flashing in her eyes. "However, most clients prefer tried-and-true methods. It's safer." Her hesitation lingered as if she felt the tension radiating from Jake. "Safe has never equated to success for me," he challenged, feeling a pleasurable thrill at speaking so frankly, even under the watchful gaze of Olivia. The thrill coursed through him, empowering him. Perhaps it was the intoxicating mix of their earlier conversation and his recent realization that opened the windows to his potential. He could already see his thoughts manifesting into something more tangible, a mindset shift. "Jake," Amy attempted, but he cut her off, driven by a sudden burst of inspiration. "What if we engaged with our clients differently, not just as a consultant, but as partners in a journey towards growth? We need to ask insightful questions that provoke thought. This can't become a rote evaluation." The words flowed through him, each phrase laced with a conviction he had felt in the presence of Olivia, igniting a desire to forge connections deeper than surface-level business encounters. The flicker of surprise in Amy's eyes told him he was breaking the mold. For years, he had followed the conventional paths laid before him, always striving to tick boxes and meet expectations. But more than ever, he felt a compulsion to shatter these confines, both for his professional integrity and his emotional clarity. "Let's redefine our role," he continued. "Instead of merely steering projects, we should embody an ethos of empowerment, helping clients realize their visions." The vision solidified in his mind, bolstered by the reflection of Olivia's earnest passion. At that moment, he felt Olivia's steady gaze maintaining a palpable cue of support, and with it, a wave of newfound confidence washed over him. His professional identity was no longer a stark contrast to his personal aspirations. They intertwined beautifully. "Okay, I'll draft a revised approach focusing on stakeholder engagement and development-centric models," Amy replied slowly, impressed, momentarily diverted from her original path. Jake nodded, the pulse of his ambition thrumming in tune with everything Olivia had stirred within him. He realized the exhilarating possibilities that new methodologies held, not just for his firm, but for his own sense of accomplishment. The more he thought about it, the clearer it became. He was forging his path anew. But within the renewed fervor came a fresh concern. What if he dedicated himself to this new vision only to run into resistance? Not just from Amy's conventional outlook, but potentially from clients who preferred the comfort of familiarity. The thought sparked both anxiety and excitement, a tantalizing reminder of the risks involved in pursuing growth. Suddenly, Jake looked across the room at Olivia. The unspoken dynamic they shared simmered just beneath their professional context. Could he also bring her into this evolution? He could scarcely imagine combining their ambitions, yet the doubt nagged persistently. As dynamic forces collided, new tensions arose. "Are we truly ready for this?" he pondered silently, grappling with the notion that in facing this hurdle, he also faced his feelings for Olivia. He turned back to Amy, ready to propel their discussion into the next stage. "Can we explore how to present this shift not just as an option, but as a necessity in today's market?" As he laid out possibilities, Jake felt the walls he had so carefully constructed begin to blur. The thrill of his convictions surged, but so did an uncertainty about how deeply he could integrate this change into both his professional life and his personal exploration with Olivia. "How far could I really push these ideas?" he questioned inwardly, as excitement vied with apprehension.
With every word exchanged, he stood at the precipice of transformation, both in his work and his life. Yet the unknown loomed, shrouded in shadows that threatened to erase the clarity he had just gained. Jake found himself teetering on the edge, wondering if his next step would unleash a tidal wave of consequences. And as the last word escaped his lips, he realized his journey had only just begun. He could forge his identity anew, but at what cost? Would he break through the barriers ahead, or remain ensnared by fears of the unknown? The moment of truth was approaching, and he could feel it drawing near. Jake could feel the palpable shift in the room. The air thickened, every heartbeat echoing his uncertainty as they navigated uncharted territory. Amy glanced at her notes, then back at him, searching for a foothold. He noticed the nervous tapping of her pen against the table, a subtle sign of her own internal conflict. "Okay, let's run with that," she replied, her voice steady despite the tremor beneath. "But we need concrete examples. Clients will want evidence of why they should shift away from what works." Jake nodded, the steel in his determination sharpening. He welcomed the challenge, recognizing that he didn't just want to pitch new ideas, he had to lay a foundation for them. "We start by selecting a few clients who are already showing signs of being open to innovation. Pilot initiatives," he suggested, enthusiasm coursing through him. "Present them with a problem, but instead of simply offering solutions, we foster a discussion." Amy furrowed her brow, considering.
That's risky. What if they feel like we're not doing our jobs? The question struck a chord deep inside him. Wasn't that precisely the risk he aimed to embrace? He sensed the walls crumbling slowly. With each question, they approached a deeper understanding of the complexities in their roles. "We'll need to communicate that our goal is to empower them, not to take away their autonomy," he said, pushing through the discomfort. An opportunistic spark ignited. He could sense a movement towards a new paradigm unfolding. Each word he spoke felt like a reclaiming of his authority. Imagine transforming client perceptions, redefining consultancy, not as mere problem solvers, but as enablers of visions. The concept resonated in the room, filling it with new energy. As Jake elaborated, painting a mental picture of empowered partners, he felt something shift within himself as well. For too long, he had been a receiver of ideas, gathering them to fit in his suit of professionalism. Now he was an architect, reshaping them. As the discussion evolved, he allowed himself momentary glances at Olivia. Her support was the bedrock beneath the dynamism he was building. Was there more to their connection than mere professional admiration? With each brave assertion he made, he began contemplating how his burgeoning confidence could translate into more than just business. As the meeting progressed, though excitement thrummed, Jake sensed a darker undertow creeping into the light, a fear wrestling for control. What if this new direction faced outright rejection? The idea of being met with ridicule or indifference gnawed at him. The meeting with Amy morphed into a strategy session, each potential plan opening the door wider to the unknown. Their discussions bounced back and forth, building coherence from initial trepidation. Yet a part of him remained anchored in a space of contemplation about the risks tied to this evolution. The stakes were heightening, and he could no longer ignore them. Jake leaned back in his chair, weighing everything that had unfolded. "We should outline a presentation for the next client meeting," he proposed, feeling more disclosed as he ventured outside his comfort zone. "We could even create visual narratives, engaging them in a way that's more relatable. Ideas can resonate when they are depicted vividly." Amy paused, then nodded slowly. "I see your vision, but I need you to be clear on how we frame that narrative. You can't just infuse passion. It needs to be persuasive enough to change perceptions. That's where the magic lies, or it can unravel." Her caution invigorated him. Each doubt she expressed ignited a fire within him to counter with clarity, a call to establish a bridge for risk-taking.
The flicker of self-doubt persisted, but it was accompanied by a rising assurance in his ability to face it. As the meeting wrapped up, Jake felt a newfound clarity. He wasn't just navigating company dynamics, he was deciphering the very fabric of his aspirations. The surface he had always treaded on felt less stable now, but he realized
stability was entangled with the courage to leap into the unknown. Walking out of the conference room, he made a decision. He would not only immerse himself in reshaping professional interactions, but also pursue a deeper understanding of his connection with Olivia, a journey that could redefine both aspects of his life. But as he left the office, a nagging question lingered in his mind. Would he have the fortitude to confront the internal hesitations that loomed closer with every forward step? Jake sensed the inevitable culmination of his journey, and the thought stirred both exhilaration and anxiety within. Tomorrow would bring more than just another day. It would demand clarity in defining next steps. In the back of his mind, he wondered, was he truly ready to face whatever consequences awaited in the pursuit of both personal and professional evolution? The morning light filtered through the office windows, revealing the hushed energy of anticipation coiling in Jake's stomach as he prepared for the client meeting. Today was not merely another workday. It was a pivotal step towards redefining his role in the consultancy. He meticulously arranged his presentation materials, an amalgamation of visuals and narratives aimed at engaging and empowering clients. Each slide encapsulated his vision of transformation, yet within him doubt coiled tightly. Would they understand? Would they be willing to take the leap with him? Jake took a deep breath, attempting to shake off his second-guessing. He couldn't afford to waver. This was his moment to embrace the architect he had become, not just for himself, but for the clients who needed guidance towards innovation. With each pulse of determination, he envisioned the conversations that would soon unfold, every question another opportunity to nurture trust. As he stepped into the conference room, his heart raced. Amy was already there, her brow slightly furrowed in concentration. She looked up as he entered, and he felt the immediate support radiating from her glance, a silent acknowledgement of their shared purpose. "Ready?" she asked. "For better or worse, yes," he replied, forcing a confident smile. Their clients, a mix of seasoned professionals and those new to the consultancy circle, started filtering in, some gazing with intrigue, others with skepticism. Jake couldn't ignore the weight of their expectations pressing down on him as he settled into his chair, mind brewing with strategies. What if their rejection skewered the vision he had cultivated? Each face in the room seemed to represent a wall waiting to be broken down. The presentation commenced, and Jake directed his focus outward. As he clicked through slides portraying the power of collaboration as a mutual investment, he felt a surge of confidence wash over him. He engaged the clients in conversation as he encouraged their perspectives. It was fulfilling. A flash of power surged through him when ideas sparked discussions. But as the interactions deepened, Jake realized that his vision relied not just on artful narratives, but also on their readiness to change. He could see glimmers of resistance. Some clients were hesitant to abandon traditional structures. He paused, weighing the tension that filled the air against his own aspirations. In that pivotal moment, he decided to confront the reservations head-on. "I understand that change is daunting," he interjected. "But let's consider the failures that arise from stagnation. What if we were to look at transformation not as a loss, but as an evolution of your success?" His words hung in the air, echoing as he searched the room. A few clients met his gaze, intrigued yet uncertain. A persuasive seed took root then. This discussion wasn't just about winning their support. It was about inviting them into a partnership. The questions flowed, each one requiring Jake to not just respond, but also pivot, embracing their concerns while reinforcing his vision. He learned to balance empathy with conviction. With every exchange, he realized he was navigating the delicate line between guiding and persuading. And with that realization flowed strength he hadn't known he possessed. As the meeting concluded, a sense of accomplishment enveloped him. Clients were asking for follow-up sessions, discussions on pilot projects, and a journey into their visions. The anxiety that once gripped him faded, replaced by a newfound clarity and purpose. This was what empowerment felt like, a mutual stepping forward instead of a solo endeavor. Jake stepped out into the bustling hallway, the hum of activity fading into the background. He had taken risks that bore fruit, but lingering shadows of self-doubt unexpectedly reemerged. He felt the need to embrace his leadership not just at work, but in his personal life, particularly with Olivia. Their professional relationship had flourished, but the line between admiration and something deeper blurred. Would he have the courage to voice those feelings? That question crowded his thoughts as he made his way to the elevator, filled with exhilarating possibilities yet weighed down by the chains of uncertainty. Tomorrow would challenge him further, not just with the task of building client relationships, but also with summoning the courage to explore his own emotions. Could he face the confrontation that might change everything? Jake's heart raced at the prospect, the weight of choice resting heavily on his shoulders. Jake leaned against the elevator wall, his heart still racing from the triumph of the morning meeting. The polished steel reflected not just his exterior, but the swirling thoughts inside his head. He'd made strides professionally today, but that accomplishment felt both liberating and burdensome. The response from his clients played in a loop in his mind, a cacophony of interest and skepticism. Yet now, a disquieting realization gnawed at him. He couldn't entirely let go of the doubts, particularly when it came to his personal life. Could he articulate his feelings for Olivia in a way that wouldn't jeopardize the professional rapport they had built? After all, their interactions were characterized by mutual respect, trust, and a shared vision of transforming clients' futures. To add emotional complexity might shift the foundational balance they'd created. But was he ready to remain in this limbo of unvoiced sentiments? The elevator doors opened, and with a deliberate breath, Jake exited into the bustling office. He had a decision to make. Should he focus on the growth of his work and the nurturing of client relations, or take the chance to explore a deeper personal connection? Each route offered its own challenges. His colleagues, unaware of this inner turmoil, greeted him with smiles, but all he could muster was a curt nod as he hurried past, mind racing. Later that afternoon, he found himself pacing around his office, the earlier momentum fading into a tangle of what-ifs. He knew the importance of taking risks in professional contexts, yet this personal risk felt starkly different. It wasn't negotiation strategies or stakeholder presentations he was contemplating, it was vulnerability. As he reviewed his notes from the meeting, a learnings document that had once invigorated him began to seem mundane, the ink blending into a blur of regret. Yet one takeaway whirled through his mind: authenticity. If he had portrayed his vision honestly and struggled through doubt live in front of clients, could he not bring the same authenticity to his relationship with Olivia? Perhaps the true transformation lay in facing his own fears directly. Jake settled down at his desk, arm resting on a pile of papers as he pulled out his laptop. He opened a blank document, glancing at the cursor blinking with impatience. Just right, he murmured to himself. This wasn't a presentation, it was, in a way, a dialogue. He began typing, drafting a message not to send, but to clarify his thoughts. As words flowed onto the screen, a surprising clarity emerged. "I'd like to explore the deeper connection we share," he wrote, "but I'm also hesitant. I don't want what we have built to change. Can we have an honest conversation?" As he paused to reread the developing message, a new sense of empowerment ignited within him. Taking control of this aspect of his life felt daunting yet liberating. Maybe, just like the clients he had withstood, who were hesitant but ready to embrace change, he could face his fears and seek an evolution in his personal life. But as he hit save, the weight of uncertainty clamped back down. What if Olivia didn't feel the same way? What if this sparked tension instead of intimacy?
The fear of rejection lurked and danced at the periphery of his thoughts. Suddenly, he received a notification from his phone, cutting through the noise. It was a calendar reminder for their weekly project update meeting. The change he craved in his personal life could wait a few more days. Or could it? His mind spun, the room closing in, as a moment of truth dawned upon him. The risks he had taken at work had led to growth, yet the thought of holding back in his private life felt equally damaging. Was he willing to risk everything, both personal and professional? He stood, spine straightening, as he—
The time had come to face it. Jake could no longer avoid the confrontation his heart yearned for, nor ignore the potential for change. With every ounce of resolve he could muster, he decided the dialogue would begin as soon as he saw her next. He needed to bridge the chasm between personal and professional truths. But would Olivia match his courage, or would this moment of vulnerability redefine their relationship forever? Jake arrived at the weekly project meeting with a heightened sense of awareness. The conference room buzzed with the low murmur of colleagues exchanging updates and ideas. But instead of focusing on the agenda at hand, his mind drifted toward Olivia. His heart raced at the thought of the conversation lurking just beyond the horizon of this meeting. As he took a seat, he caught a glimpse of her. Olivia was animated, her laughter ringing clear amid the office noise. The way she engaged with others ignited a spark within him, but it also deepened the chasm of uncertainty. What if she never saw him in that light? Yet it was that very same passion he admired that pushed him to confront his feelings. Throughout the meeting, he scribbled notes, but the words blurred into indecipherable lines. He could barely focus on metrics and projections. All he could see was Olivia's smile, the way her eyes lit up when she shared an idea. This was beyond professional admiration. It was an invitation to explore vulnerability. With each tick of the clock, the moment of truth drew closer, feeding his anxiety. When the meeting adjourned, Jake hesitated as he watched Olivia gather her things. The fear of shattering their established bond gripped him, and he nearly turned away. But then he consciously reminded himself that authenticity extended beyond yield curves and quarterly results. What good was professional success if it lacked personal fulfillment? The tension hung heavy, embedding its claws deeper into his resolve. "Hey, Jake," Olivia's voice cut through his reverie. "Do you have a minute?" He nodded, swallowing the lump of anxiety in his throat. This was it. The moment he had been internally wrestling with was unfolding. They stepped into the adjoining break room, where the air was filled with the aroma of brewed coffee. Jake glanced nervously at the coffee station, fiddling with the coffee cup in his hands as he debated the right words. "I really think we made significant progress in today's meeting," Olivia began, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "The clients will appreciate the adjustments we made to the presentation." "Absolutely," he replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "I think we can build on that momentum." There was an encouraging rhythm between them, a dance of intellect and energy. Yet Jake's heart pounded at the impending plunge into vulnerability. Olivia, can I share something personal?" Her demeanor shifted slightly, curiosity dancing across her expression. Of course. This was no longer just about project updates or client strategy. This was a defining—
He took a breath that felt like it could anchor a ship. "I've been thinking about us, the connection we share. I wonder if there's potential for something more." He could see the surprise flicker in her eyes, quickly replaced by thoughtful contemplation. "Jake, that's unexpected." The stillness was eerily palpable, and Jake's heart sank as he felt exposed, waiting for her response to puncture the charged silence. What if he had misread every cue? A tumult of what-ifs flashed through his mind. The friendship, the chemistry, they could all evaporate. But she smiled gently, breaking the tension. "I've sensed something too, but I was worried about how it might affect our working relationship." Her acknowledgement sparked a flicker of hope in him. "You think it's worth exploring?" he asked, virtually holding his breath. "Yes, I do," Olivia replied, her voice imbued with warmth. "But we must be mindful of the professional boundaries we've built." Jake felt a wave of relief wash over him, but beneath it lingered the awareness of their new complexities, a fine line he would need to tread carefully. As they exited the break room together, a newfound camaraderie enveloped them. But Jake couldn't shake the feeling of stepping into uncharted territory. The connection they had begun to explore opened both doors and dangers. However, instead of fear, he found excitement surging through him. He was ready to navigate this new challenge, blending professional ambitions with personal aspirations. Yet, what awaited them at the next step? Would they encounter unforeseen obstacles that could threaten what they were beginning to build? Or would this connection solidify their bond? The possibilities loomed large as he prepared for the next phase of their journey, but one question loomed largest in his mind. How would they balance the fervor of new feelings with the structure of their professional lives? Jake had never been one to shy away from challenges, but what lay ahead was uncharted territory. The air buzzed with anticipation as he stepped into the office after his heart-to-heart with Olivia. There was an underlying current of change that crackled around him, intensifying each moment. He could feel the shift in his professional landscape mirroring his personal life, both brimming with potential, yet filled with uncertainties. In the days that followed, Jake embraced this dual evolution. He began implementing the groundbreaking consultancy strategies he had envisioned. The confidence he had summoned during the client meeting surged through him, pushing him to explore new frontiers in business relationships. Collaborating with Amy, they focused on storytelling and engagement, fostering alliances rather than mere transactions, a vision born out of connection rather than protocol. It wasn't just professional growth. He was striking a balance that had eluded him for years. His leadership radiated in the office, energizing teams to embrace this paradigm shift. Clients responded positively. The pilot projects he introduced were met with enthusiasm, showcasing a blend of innovation and responsiveness. Each accolade earned fueled a fire within him, but the victory was more profound. He was rediscovering himself. Parallel to his work triumphs, Jake nurtured budding feelings for Olivia. They were no longer just colleagues. Their conversations became deeper, resonating with shared ambitions and the glow of mutual respect. The anticipation wasn't just about where they would go as a couple, but how this connection could enhance their professional dynamic as well. One evening, while sorting through ideas for their next project, themes emerging not just from business metrics, but from their joint experiences, Jake felt a shift inside him. He was no longer seeking to prove himself. He realized that professionally and personally, he was whole. Ian, the mentor Jake respected, had taught him the value of authenticity. Freely embracing it had unleashed an identity that had always been buried beneath layers of expectation. "Are you thinking of anything specific for tomorrow's brainstorm?" Olivia asked, her presence illuminating the small space they occupied. He looked up to find her gaze fixed on him, her enthusiasm palpable. "I want this to be about our voices," he replied, the certainty in his tone firm. "It's not just about data, it's about how we can influence the landscape as partners." She smiled, the light shimmering in her eyes in a way that warmed him inside. "I love that. I think we can anchor our proposal around narrative. What stories do our clients want to tell?" Flashes of creativity sparked through their discussions, their dialogue elevated by shared purpose.
They pored over designs, tweaking formats, molding the proposal into a living narrative. Yet each moment together, small as it was, solidified their connection. Outside the office, they began to nurture their budding relationship even further. They explored coffee shops, art galleries, and shared dinners that meandered through luscious conversations. Each date was infused with laughter and sincerity, a beautiful blend of vulnerability and boldness. Jake realized he had not just found a partner in Olivia, but also someone who inspired him to soar higher and embrace his authentic self. Weeks turned into months, marked by personal milestones that flared brightly alongside their professional achievements. Throughout this journey, Jake had not only reshaped his company's trajectory, but had also cultivated a profound relationship with Olivia. They fostered genuine dialogue, embracing feedback, and actively involving each other in their respective paths. One afternoon, as they sat together in a cafe enveloped in soft wood tones and sunlight, Jake turned to her. "We've come a long way," he said, appreciating the journey they had undertaken. "I've never felt this level of support, professionally or personally." Her expression softened. "Neither have I. It's as if we're both evolving in ways we never envisioned." He paused, taking her hand. "I think we're building something significant together, something that feeds both parts of our lives." The surge of confidence within him now included a commitment to guide their lives hand in hand, not just in their endeavors, but through every facet of their intertwined existence. Reflecting on how far he had come, transforming from a lone
wolf narrowed by self-doubt to a man who embraced both vulnerability and boldness, Jake felt a profound sense of achievement. In that moment, he recognized what mattered. He had achieved harmony, interweaving his professional aspirations with personal fulfillment. Jake was no longer just a single dad or a tech entrepreneur. He had become a leader, both in the boardroom and heart-to-heart. He conquered his fears, nurtured connections, and now stood ready to embark on new adventures. With a smile shared between them, he knew he had transformed every part of his life that once felt disjointed into a cohesive masterpiece of love and ambition. As he squeezed her hand gently, he realized this was not the end. It was merely the beginning of all they would achieve together. Now the world awaited them, each day a canvas upon which to paint their masterpieces of love and love. This is the moment for you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every click matters. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending below. Your insights are precious. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.